here today with the guest, Paul Sadhu. Paul, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Tom. How are you doing?
You bet. I'm doing well, thanks. So one of the reasons that I invited you on to this podcast and this show was because you're in a situation where I find a lot of the people that approach me are in, and that is sort of in the beginning of realizing that real estate has a lot of potential. And you have some of your family members even that have been involved in real estate investing and different things that are going on. And so I thought it would be interesting if you and I could have a discussion just talking about what are some of the things we look for initially, what are some of the processes. If somebody's just really beginning, maybe they have a little bit of connections or a little bit of background, where might they go? And so I appreciate you taking the time. You're calling in from Vancouver, Vancouver, Canada.
Vancouver, Canada. That's
right. Yeah, right. Good, cool. So great. Well, thank you for joining on this podcast. And could you maybe just describe a little bit about your background, kind of where you're at right now in your life, and maybe just touch a bit on your vision. But if we can get sort of the basis of where you're coming from, what you think your goals might be, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So my father has been in real estate and development since I was probably 14, so about 15 years. Mm-hmm. He's been flipping houses, so he'll do the construction side. He'll buy investment property, build it up, and then sell it to an investor or even someone just looking to buy a new home. Mm-hmm. When I was younger, I didn't really know anything about it. I just kind of saw him do it. But now, over the last 4 years since I got my real estate license, I've been putting a lot more time into it. And now, as you know, I did a leadership program just recently, and I built quite a few connections, and it really sparkled my vision into what I wanted to create. And so now I'm hoping to take what I know and learn a lot from all the resources that I have, like you mentioned, my uncle, my cousin, people mm-hmm. like yourself, and learn all aspects of real estate. So whether it's just being a real estate agent, or if it's buying a home and just selling a home as is, or mm-hmm. what I'm trying to do right now, which is buy tear down homes, old rancher style homes, tear them down, build up spec homes, and sell them to people looking to buy homes within my region here.
Okay, great. So we'll get into the tear down spec homes part of that in just a bit, but
okay.
So right now you have a desire to get into more full-time. Is that right? You want to get sort of full-time or completely
full-time? That's what I was saying. So as you know, right now I work at a dental office because originally my plan was to become a dentist, and that completely changed. So right now the plan is I'm working part-time at a dental office, and that's just so I can kind of save up some money and work with that when I go into investing into properties.
Okay. But just on that point, so you changed from the idea of being a dentist to, and it's a little bit ironic here that the book that I'm writing it's called The Bank Free Blueprint, and in that book, one of the avatars or the people that I'm writing towards is the busy dentist.
Yeah.
And the other avatar, so there are two avatars in this case, or two people that I'm writing to. One is a busy dentist. The other is either myself when I was starting out in real estate right out of college, or my son right now who's just getting going in real estate investing. So that's the target people that I was approaching with the writing in my book. And so it's interesting that you're sort of at that spot. You're almost at that at both of those spots, right? Because originally you were going to be a dentist. You felt that was something you wanted to do. Is there, you and I have never talked about this, is there a reason that you shifted? Is it because you felt one was more you, or what would you say?
Dentistry, as you know, my brother is a dentist, and mm-hmm. I used to follow in his path rather than try to create my own. And over the last year, I've been really considering this, but over the last 4 months, my mind's just shifted, and I could see the difference in myself when I was putting time into going in to be a dentist and putting time into real estate. the excitement and joy that I'm getting from looking at properties and investment properties and the potential that I have a lot more excitement in that, and it's something I look forward to when I wake up in the morning, when I jump on my computer. So
nice.
that excitement, that's really gotten me going now. And it's when I wake up, I'm not dreading going to the dental office to work or study. Now it's, oh, I can't wait to go look for a property or learn something new about real estate.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. One of the things that I like to kind of work with when we're talking about deciding where we want to go is if we start really from from the big picture of what is our purpose, and then with our purpose, if we understand our purpose, we get to understand and develop our passion. And so it's interesting that you've been able to make that shift, and you really see where that's at. And so I can tell that you've built that, you're building that passion for real estate. And I think that's great, because I think real estate has some really tremendous potential and power, a lot of things you can do, powerful things you can do with real estate. And so if you were to sort of summarize, and if you haven't done this, then that's totally cool, but at some point it'd be great to do it. If you were to summarize what your passion is, if you, or let's go back to your purpose. If you were to summarize your purpose, have you ever gotten to that point of really knowing what your purpose is? If not, that's something that will develop over time, but I'm curious.
As far as like my purpose in life?
Yeah, just the big why. What is our big why? Why do we, what really gets us up in the morning? And one of the exercises that I encourage people to do is that think, and it could be 2 years out, 3 years out, 5 years out, but think of a Monday morning and you're waking up and you're going to have the perfect day. What would that day look like? And everything from knowing, first of all, who you'd be waking up with, what your family might look like, what your home, your surroundings, what are you excited about getting up on Monday morning to do? What would that perfect day look like? And I think by doing that, it really helps us step back and gives us time to really see what our bigger purpose is. So I don't know if you've had any experiences with that or not.
In that sense, I don't know if I've thought about it enough, but just like you were saying, I kind of got an idea. It's just one, to be happy, and what would create that happiness is having a self-sustained business or company, something that could allow me to spend more time with people I love and care about, whether it's working alongside with them or whether it's a wife at home. Yeah. Something that can allow us freedom to do what we want, where we're not waking up dreading what we're about to have to do. It's more, oh, I can't wait to wake up so I could spend time with my friends, my family, and create something, whether it's an investment, whether it's a birthday party, whatever it might be, just having freedom in my life.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think if as you're going through this process, maybe over the next month or 2 or 3, whatever time it takes, to think about what it would be that would drive you. What is, and for some people it's things like family, obviously. Another one is giving back. Another one is really being there to support other people. That might be philanthropic. It might be, a lot of times it is some form of giving back, whether it's giving back to family, giving back to society, giving back to, to a school, to a charity, whatever it might be. But we don't need to get into that tonight or today. But I think really the biggest thing is to sort of in the back of your mind, try to eventually start to formulate that, because that one thing is going to then create the passion. And the passion, I look at 3 things. There's purpose, passion, and integrity. If you have your purpose, then the passion becomes the fuel and the integrity becomes a vehicle to get us to where we want to go, which is our purpose. And that combination is extremely powerful if we can get to where we really understand why we're doing what we're doing. So, but just along those lines, let's say, for instance, that, well, regardless of whether you have your big why completely figured out or not, we know that you have found that you would be passionate about getting into real estate. You've been involved with it enough, maybe not a ton with your family, with your uncle or your father, but you've been involved with it somewhat. And so if we sort of reverse engineer it, and we know that that's the passion, what do you think it would take for you to get to the point where you are most comfortable with where you're at? So I understand that you're still working in the field of dentistry, but I also understand, if I'm understanding you correctly, that you are looking to pull yourself back from that and move into the real estate world more. With that, if you can identify, is it cash flow or is it long-term gains that you're looking for? My guess is it's probably a combination, because the cash flow is something that's going to help sustain your living, so you don't need to be going into a 9-to-5 job 5 days a week. So any thoughts on that?
Well, like you just said, cash flow, long-term gains. Definitely, I've been thinking about that and just creating another avenue of cash flow. That's the biggest thing that's been going through my mind right now. Just being able to be self-employed pretty much and create that for myself, and just knowing that whatever I put into this, I'm going to get out of it. And the harder I work, the more I'll get out of it. Okay. And that's been the biggest thing for me, just creating that cash flow. Just because on a smaller scale, I've seen what my dad's been able to accomplish. Yeah. And I want to take that and grow it into a bigger scale. Yeah. And did you say it was your uncle that was involved as well? Yeah, my uncle is involved in a much larger scale. So he works with commercial real estate and large residential transactions. Okay. So that takes us to the next step, which I think is really valuable as well. And that is, now that we've, in this case, it hasn't been really refined to a lot of detail, but we know that it's cash flow and it's long-term gains, a combination of those two that you're aiming for. We also know that your father is doing some real estate, but from what I understand, it's just like not as much as what you'd like to be doing. And your uncle is doing real estate at a level that's closer maybe to what you would aim for. It may take a while for you to get there, but would that be accurate? That's 100% right. That's it. Okay. And so the next step that I suggest going through is to inventory what we have to work with. And when I describe that, I'm talking about everything from your passion, your desire to make it happen. That's a tool. Your father, you've, even though you may not have worked with him a lot, I'm not sure whether you have or not, but that's part of sort of the value, I call it tools in the tool chest or tools in the toolbox. You have certainly a resource in him. You have a resource in your uncle. You have a resource in the fact that you are a real estate, and did you say agent or broker? Yeah, I'm a real estate agent. Yep. So that's another thing. So you have those sort of tools in the tool chest, and I'm guessing you may have some others. And so what I like to do is get people to inventory what they have and really segment it out so that it's very clear. Because when you think about it, a real estate deal takes three primary things. One is the deal itself. Another is the money. But the third thing is the implementation. And along with implementation, there's, whether if it's new construction or renovation, there's obviously the materials and labor and all of that. But it's really the implementation. So it's those three things that really are very important to pull together to get a deal done. I mean, they're all three critical to make it happen. And there's things like, yes, there's time involved, but that I kind of lump in with the implementation piece of it. And so
when you're looking at inventorying what you have to work with and being able to then identify what you can leverage off of, that's where the real power comes in, the ability to make things happen that otherwise might be really tough to make happen. So I love the idea of being able to collaborate, of being able to work together, creating an alignment of interests so everybody's pulling in the same direction. The risks are lower. I mean, I talk about this all the time where if everybody can be pulling in that same direction and not being concerned about, well, this is my piece, that's your piece, everybody's kind of holding back. It creates so much, a lot smoother machine to get deals done. They get done safer, faster, which then means more profitable. And so thinking about the next step then I would recommend for you would be to really identify those tools that you have in your toolbox, the things that are going to really help you get to that next level, things that you can leverage. So for instance, right now, you don't have necessarily a lot of time right now, from what I understand, but if you can get to a certain point, then you would have a fair amount of time to be able to devote to this business. If you can get to where you're not relying on your 9-to-5 job, right?
Yeah, and that's fair to say. However, I'm fortunate enough where I can take some time off so I can cut back my hours. So that's really allowed me to put some more time into this. And I was telling you before, I have one property I'm planning to work on. And so because I'm going to cut back a little bit on my work, on my 9-to-5, I'll be spending maybe 2-3 days there and then 3-4 days and on top of the days that I'm also working at my 9-to-5 on real estate.
Yeah, that's great, because that too it's almost like a tool, or it's an asset that you have. You have some flexibility in being able to not be totally reliant on the 9-to-5 job, from what I understand. You also have the fact that you have a project that is already in the works, and at some point here we'll jump into that. But if you can identify those tools in the tool chest, and I'll just touch on a couple of things, which are just things for you to it helps you trigger some thoughts of what are some other things that can be leveraged. Somebody that has other real estate that maybe they own free and clear, but they know you, they trust you, they know that you're going to perform, that you've built that trust over time with them. So that could be a possible tool to work with when structuring deals. So for instance, if you get into a property that needs a chunk of money, but you also want to be able to show that you've got skin in the game, or something that you're dedicated to that project, by bringing in someone as a collateral partner on your side, it's going to allow you to get financing for your project easier. So whether it's a hard money lender, or if it has to be a bank of some sort, or whatever it is, wherever that source is of the main capital, a lot of times they're going to want to see some skin in the game or skin in the deal, so they know that you're dedicated to stick with it till the end. And so collateral partner, there might be a need for, might be a use for credit partner. Knowing you, I'm sure your credit is perfect, but let's say it's somebody else who doesn't have good credit, and that's part of the criteria of who the main money source is going to be. Well, maybe one can bring in a credit partner. So a lot of these things that are needed to get a deal done can be brought in by people that we collaborate with, or that we work with, that we pull together. So just thinking through and identifying all of those things, it's like a puzzle, and you pull all these pieces together, and you know that you've got collateral partner, maybe you have a cash partner, maybe you have a credit partner, or maybe you have somebody who has a lot of experience that other people have worked with, and you can leverage that into your team. So doing that, and then once that piece is done, then the next step is going to setting your criteria of what it is that you're looking for. So I'll stop at that point just to see if you have any questions or have any thoughts or anything to share from that perspective, because the next step then would be to understand our target and our criteria for our investing.
No, I feel like what you just said, that's kind of exactly where I'm at. So as far as cash partner, I've been talking to my father. He said if I find the right lot, he trusts me enough, he can put in the cash.
Mm-hmm.
And then credit, my brother, he said he'll put it'll be easier to get a loan knowing that my brother's a dentist and he has that credit built up. So I have him on the credit side. So that's kind of exactly where I am right now. So fortunately enough, I've been able to have them. So now when I'm looking out for properties, I have that cash flow and I have that credit built with those two resources. So I'm glad you touched up on that, because it makes me feel like I'm on the right track.
Yeah, definitely. I think you have a lot of tools. You have a lot of things going for you in this, and that's where the more that we have to work with, the more likely it is we'll be able to put a puzzle together that is going to be really good and solid for everybody involved. The key to this whole model is to really make sure that everybody does well, that nobody is going to feel like they got the short end of the stick. And so there are definitely ways to pull this all together. And granted, sometimes it may mean giving maybe a good share of the equity or the profits or whatever it is from the first few projects away, giving it away. But that, in my opinion, that's not bad, because the value of that education that we get from bringing those people together, bringing those sources and having good, solid, profitable, successful deals, that's worth practically more than any money in the bank, because it is a track record. It is something that proves that you know what you're doing. It proves that you can accomplish what you set out to accomplish. So there's a lot of value in that. So never being too afraid of having to share in what's good. I mean, it's a whole concept of abundance. There's so much out there. There's so much for everybody to share. So maybe let's just talk just for a little bit about the project that you have. And I know that you and I talked a little bit about, you have a single family home that you're going to be tearing down and rebuilding, but you also had some thoughts about maybe some other areas, whether it's multifamily or if it's fix and flip, or if it's commercial development or residential development. Maybe if you want to share any thoughts that you have on that where you're at.
Yeah, so touching on that, so the one we do have, like you were saying, it's a standard sized residential home. So while I'm waiting for that process to develop, I've been looking for other properties, and I'm likely going to stick on the residential side for now while I kind of learn and expand. But I've been looking at multifamily homes and duplexes, things that have a little bit more potential possibly. But from what I've been told, I'm not going to have enough cash flow and credit. I'm sort of focusing on the one right now. I have the option to buy one more, and I've been looking into multifamily homes, but it's likely going to be the single family dwelling for now. And then as I learn more, I'll go on. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, could you describe just the basic numbers on the single family home, and then how you got to this point of feeling like the single family home was your first step?
It's what I'm most comfortable with, because it's what I've known. That's strictly what my father's been doing. So I've been surrounded by it for the last few years. And
that's new construction that he handles mostly?
Yeah, so it's a 33 by 122 lot. It's an old tear down home. And yeah, so the plan is currently it's tenant occupied by the previous owners, and they know that they're going to have to move out. So we gave them the 2-month notice. We're waiting for them to get out, and then we're going to tear it down and build it back up.
I see. And then the numbers have seemed pretty solid. One of the things that happens with teardowns is, and I'm sure that you've run all the numbers, but by buying a home and then tearing it down, through that process, we actually reduce the value below the value of a vacant lot for a certain period, and then you bring it up by way of the new construction and for all of that. And so any thoughts on what made you decide that the numbers were good on this lot?
So one piece of advice I was told was just to look at the history of the solds in the area that I'm buying in,
Mm-hmm.
and look at the history of the solds of old teardowns that are
Mm-hmm.
this kind, and new constructions that have sold. And just looking at the numbers, I thought we got a good deal because I looked at new properties and the lot, and I tried to have about a 20% difference. Someone was telling me about 200,000 on the million,
Mm-hmm.
that you can profit and just in case anything happens. So I kind of put the numbers together. I reached out to my uncle who I really trust in this
Mm-hmm.
field, and he told me jump right in, and it's close to home.
Great.
That makes it
Excellent.
even better. So when I am working on this project, I can literally go down the street and just
Mm-hmm.
check on it. So I thought it was win-win.
Oh, that's great. And that's one of the things when we're doing our criteria for our investing, like listing out what the criteria is. And that's typically what would happen at about the stage where you're at right now, is you're sort of identifying what are all the criteria of a good project. So you just stated one that's really important, and that is doing something that's very close to home. Another one is that you've got the support of your uncle or your uncle and your
Yeah.
father that have looked at the numbers, and they can really back that up. So to me, it seems like you've definitely covered those areas, but that's part of setting criteria, is like, is it going to be single family? Is it going to be development property? Is it going to be residential, multifamily, or whatever it is? But setting those criteria is good. So it sounds like you have that part covered well. This area must be an up and coming area. Is it growing?
Yeah, for them, it's pretty well developed area itself. But yeah, I mean, there's so many projects that go up here like every other week, and this is
Mm-hmm.
just going to be another one of them.
Yeah, nice. You mentioned the 20%, and if I was to, or you said it was basically 20%. It was
Yeah.
200,000 on a million. Would you say that what I'm interpreting that as is a 20% margin, but I'm thinking that probably is a 20% margin before the cost of money? Or
Yeah.
is that?
So what someone told me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, this is just something I heard.
Mm-hmm.
So he told me take into account what you're going to pay for the lot, what the
Mm-hmm.
construction costs will be,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to add about 200,000, and then look at is that what you can sell this house for?
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah, and so that would seem to, as long as what it'll cost to fix it up includes the labor. So
Yeah, yeah, of
the
course.
purchase price plus the materials and labor
Yeah.
to complete the project. So yeah, so that answers my question about, I think in that case, which I think that's reasonable, assuming that the project happens on time,
Yeah.
fairly quickly and on budget, because one of the criteria that we set is we never want, again, we very seldom will look at a project unless it has at least a 12% net profit after all expenses, including financing costs. So your 20% net, excluding financing costs, would come really close in with that 12 to 14% range for net profit. So that part seems good. Your way of financing this property, do you have any thoughts on how you plan on doing that? Right now, money, it's easier to get now than it was 7-8 years ago by far, but there still is, when it comes to new construction, there can be, it's hard to get all the money that's needed sometimes.
Yeah, well, actually, in Canada, it's actually quite hard to get financing right now at the moment.
Okay.
But I used my brother and my father, and they've already got such a great relationship developed because we've been working with the same bank and the same people for so long that it was easy to get financing.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did is I collaborated with my father for the financing.
Yeah.
And then as far as the construction, the financing we're going to require for that I'm going to do on my own. And that's through a friend of mine. So I'm kind of working through that stage right now.
Okay.
And it's
So
a
it's a
little bit
very
new to me.
collaborative,
Yeah, exactly.
approach. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Great. When you are thinking of this entire process let's just go with this single family property first. And let's say that you're talking to an investor, a passive investor that and you have your funding in place basically, but let's say it's somebody new, and somebody was to ask you, what are the top 3 risks that you see in this project right now? What would you come up with?
Top 3 risks. Well, one, the market is a little bit unstable here in Vancouver. Just, I'm not sure if you're aware, but they added a foreign buyers tax, and
Yeah.
almost all the buyers here were foreign people from a distance. So it's slowed down a little bit. So
Okay.
that's been one of the biggest things.
Mm-hmm.
Also, financing's been huge. So someone else buying the property may not be able to get financing because I heard a lot of the banks are capped out on what they're going to give out.
Mm-hmm. So just on that point, there are some things, there are advantages and disadvantages, right? So if other
Yeah,
people aren't able to get financing as easy, that may make values shift one way or the other because there's less ability to build as many properties as there might
yeah,
be a demand for. So it's an interesting position where it could cause, it could be an advantage or a disadvantage. Like for instance, in your case, if you already have the funding in place, that's a competitive advantage, because if other funding is tightening up, especially if foreign money is getting taxed to the point where it's not coming in.
no, exactly. I couldn't have said that better myself. That's
Mm-hmm.
why I did it. And then as far as any other disadvantages, I mean, off the top of my head, I can't come up with much. Those are just the 2 biggest things I've probably been thinking about.
Okay. Yeah. So in your case, it's a little bit different, but one of the biggest risks that I would say that a passive investor would look at or should look at in a situation like what you have, a couple of things. One is experience, the ability
Okay.
to prove that you can get it done on budget and on time. And you've got some great tools there. You have your uncle, you have your father, and they're going to be able to help you put together a very solid package if it had to go out to a third party investor. But you've already got your brother Gary, you've got your father, you've got other people that already know you. So I think in your case, it's still important for you to be able to prove it ahead of time, almost like being overly cautious isn't the right word. I'm trying to think of overly transparent and really protective of that cash, by way of saying, I mean, helping them, and I'm sure they've got different ways where they might have systemized payouts, so that, again, family, it's different, but if it's a private lender that's not family, what they're going to want to know is that the money that they're putting into the project is being spent for the exact thing that they say it's going to be spent for, that the active investor says it's going to be spent for. So anything that we can do to prove that package, or prove that the structure of the deal, so that it doesn't allow for money to walk away or to seep away in areas that are of any sort of question. So full transparency, I think, is very critical. Good details on contractors, subcontractors, good contracts, so that there are provisions in the contracts that if somebody is not performing, what happens? Will you be able to take over that position of that general contractor and bring another contractor in? So just thinking through all of the processes, all of the things where something might possibly go wrong, and then and identifying that, and then figuring out a way to mitigate it, and being able to not only do that for yourself, but then when you're doing it, you're going to be able to put a package together for your passive investors that are going to show them that you really know what you're doing, that you've covered the risks, that you have a team that has the experience and all of the credibility and the staying power to get the project done. So those are some things that I think will really help this move along, especially if you didn't have the resources for that you already do with your uncle and your father and your brother. So any thoughts at this point? Any questions?
No, that everything you're saying, I feel like I've come across it, but I just haven't thought about it as much as you have in detail.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Mm-hmm.
very appreciative of you saying that.
Oh, great. When we were just talking about the different things, the different risks and that type of thing, one thing I really recommend you do, and anybody that's listening, would be to always have a list of risks, a list by the side of our computer, a list on our computer, whatever it is, where anytime we think of anything that could potentially be a risk, or we hear of somebody else that had a problem with a real estate deal, or just we want to be able to have a checklist that we can always refer back to. And in some cases, like for instance, let's just say here, let's say it's you start getting into multifamily, and you're doing some single family, you're doing rehab, you're doing new construction, all of these. Some of the things that come on that risk profile are going to be only for new construction. Some are going to be only for multifamily. But creating that really very comprehensive list and always referring back to that, because we think we're going to remember every risk that's in a deal, but a lot of times it's easy to forget, and it could be just one small thing that could make a big difference. So and by keeping that list, it really helps us think through the process. The more we can start having what I call lateral thinking, of being able to really broadly look at everything and see where any potential risk might be, and taking time to flip that rock or dig under it a little bit and find out whether there is or isn't a risk, and then deciding or moving on from there. That I think is really important and valuable, is to create that list and be really judicious in sticking with it and using it every single time. So one thing that you and I talked about just briefly yesterday, I think it was yesterday, was the idea of, so this is the first project, the single family. Where might it look? What might be the next steps going from here? And so maybe could you just share what vision you have, if it's been fleshed out or not? What kind of, where you think you'd like to be in a year from now or in 3 years from now, and which area of investing do you see yourself in?
Yeah, so like we talked about yesterday, so the plan was I'm gonna build this one, and then this will be knocked down next year. I want to double that, so I want to have at least 2 projects running at the same time, and then slowly expand, so 2 to 4, 4 to 6, and I want to at the moment solely focus on the residential side, just because I have the cash flow and the credit to be able to do that at the moment. But as I expand, I'd love to get onto the commercial side. However, right now, I think it's just not fair to me to think about it too much, because I don't really know anything about it.
Yeah.
And so I think as I learn in the residential side, I'll slowly be able to gain knowledge in other areas and kind of get an idea of where I want to go into.
Yeah, and I think you'll find that time it'll sort of present itself.
Yeah.
And it'll present itself after you've created the teams, you've created the people, the framework of people that are going to really be able to help you facilitate and complete the deals, where then you're going to be able to have a little bit more time on your side, and you've brought these teams together, and they're working well and they're very cohesive. And so I think that I would agree that that's going to come in time. And on this new construction, whether it's the 1 or 1 to 2 and 2 to 4, what are you looking at for exit strategies? Is it always a sale, or is it the sale of every 3 out of 4 and keep 1, or what is your strategy there?
Yeah, so currently, just due to cash flow, I'd love to just get sales done. So if everyone got sold right away, that would be the goal. However, over time, I'd like to look into investment properties, and not just in Burnaby. My brother, as you know, lives in Calgary. So my end goal would be to expand, also maybe move across provinces, and to have just rental properties that I can get some residual income through.
Sure.
But over time, as I grow the business more and more.
Okay. And how far away are you from Gary? How many miles or kilometers?
It would be a flight, so it's about a 1.5 hour flight.
Okay, gotcha. So so some of the things as far as rentals, that still could possibly work out because he's there,
Yeah.
in that area. And if it's multifamily, there's always the ability to hire a good property manager, but then your expertise would then be in being a good property manager. So you're able to manage them remotely and really have all the tools that it takes to manage them. So, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and having him there is a great tool too, because he's been doing his research in that market. And that market I've been looking at more into rental properties, because from what I've heard from him is rent itself covers the mortgages out there. So I mean that's a great opportunity in itself right there. However, I want to like I've been saying, I want to learn first in my local neighborhood so I can gain that knowledge, and then I can fly out there and worry about that
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yep. And maybe along the line, you might end up finding yourself in some light to moderate rehabs, renovations. Those can be nice too, because I always look at projects as the least moving parts possible. Less moving parts means, generally speaking, means less risk. So maybe it's just a nice little single family home that just needs splash and dash or paint and carpet and maybe a bathroom and kitchen update, those types of things. And I sort of consider this like stacking strategies. So it might be a single family that needs that light to moderate renovation. We'll say no additions, no build-ons, no big structural things. But having that and then combining that with a rental strategy, it's like doubling up. It's stacking the two strategies, and you can get some pretty cool numbers out of that too, so that it actually would be not only that the renters pay for the mortgage, but they actually, it's a positive cash flow each month, because you've been able to get it at a lower price. You've been able to renovate it, bring it up, and you've got that equity piece, makes the cash flow better. So just different things. But I think over time that's going to work itself. You're definitely going to see those things coming, and I think it'll come together really nicely for you. You have tools that a lot of people don't have, but I would also encourage anybody that's listening. There are ways of doing a lot of these things, even if we don't have right in front of us all of those tools, as long as we have the ability to see where they might be and build relationships and bring people into those areas. It might cost us more of the profits, more of the back-end profits, but I'd much rather take and share in back-end profits than to take on too much risk where the deal doesn't get done properly and then there's no profits at all. I'm totally of the mindset that sharing profits is a great thing, because it really helps build and strengthen relationships. So any other thoughts or questions that you might have that
just on what you said, that's a big thing I've been doing. So I've been reaching out to a lot of people, and everyone loves talking about real estate, but just showing people that I'm educated and I know what I'm doing. And I've created quite a big network just within my friends and family that had no idea that I was even interested in something like this. Just by being open with people and telling people about your passion and what you're interested in, it creates so many more opportunities and avenues. True? Yeah, that's been a big part for me. I mean, I have my brother, I have my dad. I'm fortunate to have that. But if I didn't have them, I've been creating other relationships that have helped me quite a bit along the way too. And it may not be in investments, it may end up being in something else, but those relationships go a long way. And that's been big for me over the last few months.
Yeah, and it really ties into that abundance mindset. The more that we can get to the position of really knowing that there's plenty out there for everybody, that there's enough to go around, and just really being comfortable that we don't have to be worried about, I always look at the scarcity is fear driven. It's fear driven creates greed driven, and all of that just gets to be nasty and messy. Whereas if we can go at it from the abundance mindset that there's plenty out there for everybody, plenty to share, it makes things run so much smoother. And it makes, not only that, it makes life a lot more fun, a lot easier to get through some of the challenges. We know we've got other people covering our back if something doesn't go exactly as planned. So there just really are some real benefits there. So Yeah, and in the future, I think what would be interesting is as you come across some of these projects, and that's one of the things we do on this podcast is we look at certain deals and actually just go through and analyze them. We can talk them over, talk through them and see what are different ways that maybe some creative structuring. There just are a lot of different ways to put deals together. It doesn't have to just be the bank and you and the contractors putting it together. It can be a whole network of people that do it. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, let's say they have a project that they'd like you to take a look at, or if they decide they want to invest alongside you, whatever it might be, is there any way that they might contact you?
Yeah, so two best ways are one, by calling me. My phone number is 778-384-0651. And my email address, paulsidhu@royalpacific.com.
Okay.
And that's my real estate company address.
Okay, great. Any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
No, I mean, first of all, I want to acknowledge you. Thank you, Tom, just for reaching out to me and
absolutely
blessing me with your knowledge. But yeah, I mean, just talking to you too, I've learned so much just from this short conversation, and I can't wait to enforce these things that I'm learning. And anytime I come across something new, I think the best thing is to always keep a good pen and a notepad.
Mm-hmm.
But right. I'll be watching this interview over, and I'll be making some notes. But yeah, just like you said, whether it's risks that you come across or something new that you learn, just having that knowledge, because even in my day-to-day, I always forget things that I say, but especially in real estate, something I want to take so seriously and that I'm passionate about, just being hands-on and thinking 2 steps in advance and knowing your details.
Yeah, you just said something right there, 2 steps in advance. The more we can be forward thinking, think before the challenges come up. It's very progressive thinking, and being able to do that is very powerful. If you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you were to say one or two, maybe one resource that you think has really helped you to get to where you're at today, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in life in general, anything that our listeners could take away that you felt has made a big impact on you, whether maybe it's a book, maybe it's a website, maybe it's a resource of some sort, maybe it's whatever it might be. Is there anything that comes to mind?
For me, it was finding my passion, and how I found that was through my brother, and how my brother, he saw something in me that I probably didn't see. And he, as you know, made me do a leadership program, a self-development program, which I'm a huge believer in now. So reading books has been huge for me. Yeah. Just attending seminars about leadership, and that's gone a long way because it's allowed me to have my passion come in front of me and smack me in the face. And now I know what I want to do with my life.
Right. Yeah, that's great. That's powerful. So again, if anybody would like to reach out to Paul for any of the information on any resources, you have the information there. And in the meantime, I look forward, Paul, to you and I talking again, maybe with the next project that you see, whether it's single family, maybe it's a small multifamily, or some sort of residential development. It'd be interesting to talk through that. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be on this show, and looking forward to seeing how things go for you.
Yes, and thank you, Tom. You'll be hearing a lot from me. I'll probably be bugging you quite a bit over the next while.
Okay, perfect. That sounds great. Thanks, Paul.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Yep, bye-bye.
Bye.